I think that's probably like the biggest reason I've like steered towards like the creative arts and stuff like that. Just because there's no real identity outside of whatever you call yourself or whatever you make and stuff like that. Like whatever you create is what you identify as. I made a conscious decision. I told my dad, I was like, I need to make what I'm from. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, I need to make like hip hop. And he was like, what made you think that? And I was like, that's just where I'm from, right? And he was like, yeah, that's where you're from. And I was like, okay. And so that's kind of, I remember the exact day. My room was all rearranged, and it was years ago. But like we went and got tacos and talked about it, and I came home and made my first like hip hop beat. And that's kind of what started me making hip hop. But I've always, even when I made like music, when I was making like electronic music and stuff like that, there was always that like hip hop influence because I've always listened to hip hop, and both my parents are like avid lovers of hip hop and rap and stuff like that. There's I don't know what it is, but everybody does it. I don't know if you see it too. It's a certain look that I get from people when I first meet them. It's almost like a look of like, okay, hold on, like they're trying to figure you out. Like it takes a couple seconds, but they figure you out, and they're like, okay, he's this or like, he's that. But it's just a quick second. You see it, and they're like, okay, he's black, and then or he's white. And I think that's kind of like something that's always thrown me off meeting people.
I'm an avid ballet dancer. I've been dancing since I was 6. And yeah, it's basically encompassed my entire life. It's all consuming. I've caught a lot of small children looking at me, just kind of like, what is she? And of course, as soon as someone hears me speaking a foreign language that they don't recognize right off the bat, they're like, what is that? There's a big beauty trend where everyone wanted to look like their hapa, which is half Japanese, half white. And so they would dye their hair, wear colored contacts, get double eye surgery, all that jazz to make themselves look a little more Western, but not completely Western because they liked that like dual look, I guess. So when I'd go to Japan when I was really young and that trend was really raging throughout Tokyo, I've gotten a lot of like people literally just running up to my mom and saying, hey, can we take pictures of your daughter because she's hapa? And I was just, like 2nd, 3rd grade, not understanding. I think there are moments where people will see me on the train with my mother and they'll be like, oh, maybe she's like, as she's doing like an exchange program and she's actually like not 100% Japanese, but then they'll hear me speak Japanese and they'll be like, oh wait, she's fluent. So she's probably just one of those wannabes who wants to look Western.
My parents got me into childhood acting when I was younger, and it was amazing at first, like smiling in front of a camera, you have so much attention. But then like, you notice when you walk into these audition places that like, they ask for a black kid. You constantly wonder what they want. Because a lot of times they want the stereotype, and it's like, am I supposed to go in there and act like I'm an athlete? Or am I supposed to go in there and like, talk a different way because they want black kids? Yeah, because like, and that's when I was kind of thrown in my like, being biracial was kind of not acknowledged. I was just a black male. And so I was just thrown in with the rest of the black males. It sucked. Yeah, because I never went to auditions with white people. And so I realized that like, okay, this commercial doesn't want a talented kid or a kid that like cares. They just want a black smile, my dad's white, my mom was black, my sister was adopted, black, and my brother, who's my half brother, white. Every day I'm like, oh, there's my sister who's darker, there's my brother who's lighter, there's my mom who's darker, there's my dad who's lighter. Like, it's, colors were just always something I noticed. The looks we would get, or people being like, hey, so is this a kid you're taking care of? It's like, I'm his son. They don't assume that a black kid can have a parent that looks totally different. But what's beautiful is that, like, I look like my dad, like, I do look like him. I do some of the same things he did, but, like, our skin color's different. And that's just kind of annoying, because, like, to me, one of the best, like, most beautiful things about a family is, like, seeing the resemblance. Like, seeing parents that look like their kids. And, like, in my family, I feel like that's always just been ignored. Just because we're different colors, a lot of people just, like, thought we were totally different people. Yeah.
I found like a community of fan people who were like addicted to like Supernatural and stuff, and I was like, I'll just get into these type of shows because like these people were very accepting and kind. And so ever since then I've been very interested in like nerdy stuff, so to speak, like movies and TV shows and books, because that was sort of like an outlet and something that I was very accepted in, rather than being like, oh, this is all focused on who you are and what type of person you are. It was very much so like, do you like this thing? So I could just like something and be accepted for that. I definitely think that like if I'm in a group with all black people, then I tend to change like the way that I speak or things like that. And when I'm with a group of like white people, for example, I try to be more, I guess like proper. I don't get to necessarily be like who I am. There tends to be like a common theme that if you talk a certain way, then you aren't educated, or if you're from a certain community, then you're automatically a criminal or something like that. So I think that I have to like sort of represent that and be sort of a contradiction to that. We went to Kentucky a couple summers ago. We walked into the restaurant and it was full of white people, and as soon as we entered the door, everyone turned and stared at us and just like watched us until we left. And I really didn't feel comfortable like staying in that restaurant. But I think it was us being black with like two white women that was very shocking for those people. And yeah, that was really scary. It was like, I was really afraid for like what would happen, because they were just watching us like our every move. And yeah, it's not a comfortable situation.
I get to always explore new characters and new worlds and see where that takes me, and it's like kind of like being an Indiana Jones type of explorer, but except you're exploring your mind and where that goes, and it's always exciting and new. My grandmother, she's very Hispanic, and she raised me while my dad was in the oil field for years and years and years. And so when my mom was away, my friends, people, they would like always think that she was my cleaning lady. And I'm like, no, don't let her hear you. She's gonna kick your butt with a chancleta, okay? That's my grandma, I promise. And stuff like that. And then whenever like she would wait for me at the bus, people in school, they would be like, oh, that's your, like, who's this, like your maid or like your babysitter, like you said, or stuff like that. I was with my mom. We were at the post office with my father. I remember a man, said something about to my mother to go back to her country. We don't want people like you here in our country. My mom said, well, excuse me, I've been in this country for like 15 years, like 20 years, and something like that. But my father, he just unleashed vengeance on this man. I went, whoa, who's this guy? My dad's awesome, what the heck? That man was so afraid because my dad stood up for what was right. He didn't hurt him or anything, but he just let him know that closed-minded way of thinking was not okay. And that was whenever I learned that maybe I could stand up for that too, because I was part of both of them.
What's your name?
Sequoia.
Yeah, Taurus, Shara?
I read an unnecessary amount of books. And I especially did when I was younger, and you always picture the characters as white. There's no getting away from that. When I was little, I always wanted to be like a white blonde girl who, like, I had a character in my head that I made up, and she was very skinny and blonde and blue-eyed and very pretty, and I was like, wow, that's who I am inside. That's who I am underneath all of my weird hair and my triangle glasses and whatever else I was wearing at the time of being a child. And I was sitting in the bathroom and I was looking at my reflection in the mirror, and I said to myself, I was like, why do I look like this? Why can't I just be normal? And it's something that's kind of scary to think about, because that's what's going to be passed on to future generations if we don't change that.
Às vezes no silêncio da noite eu fico imaginando. I play music. I like doing artsy things. When I was younger, I used to like hate all my Filipino traits. I remember because I spent like a month in Hawaii or something, and I came back brown. You know, and everyone's like, oh, your tan is so pretty, but I was like, no, like I like looking pale.
Cecilia Mortel Ravorti in Hawaii. Say hi. Hi. She's gonna swim. How?
Yeah, and I think that it was because of like this kind of internalized racism that exists in me that, you know, kind of gravitated towards, you know, me trying to be white, me trying to look more white. I've been able to talk to people who are of a different skin color than me. And, you know, that communication really started at home. And I think that that's the really great thing about mixed kids is that at a very, very young age, they're exposed, you know, to people of different skin colors, you know, of different cultures. They already grow up loving people who are different than them, you know. And I think that that's so incredibly beautiful, and I think that, you know, mixed kids are really going to change the world because they are the people who are, you know, they're the symbol of communities bridging, if you really think about it.